What is up, residents of the Mysta-Clan? This is your boy 6 Mysta-Man coming at y'all with a brand new video. So today we're going to go over an interesting topic. It's going to be a Naruto what if, but we're not going to be focusing on Naruto. We're going to be focusing on another Naruto character, Kakashi Hatsuki. So to be doing this, we're also going to change the story a lot, but Naruto and Sasuke are still going to be a main focus, but Kakashi is going to be a lot different. So after the death of Obito and Rin, Kakashi would obviously go to become an Anbu, and even after Minato's death would stay there. As an Anbu, he would grow into a really non-emotional person until he meets another person who had recently become an Anbu that is a lot younger. This prominent member of the Anbu would be put under him for now, and this person would be Itachi Uchiha. So Itachi is a really talented person, and basically a lot like Kakashi is. After spending a lot of time with Itachi, Kakashi would see that Itachi is a really brooding person that only really cares about protecting the village and has really learned to know him. They haven't gotten emotionally close or anything, but they know a lot about each other in the very least. So if we're going to start off like that, I'm going to say that we're going to need to introduce him to Shishui, because this is one of the main focuses of this. But for now, we're going to say that Kakashi would realize that if he didn't interact with other people, basically socializing, this is what really would happen. He sees someone else as people see him and realizes the error in his ways and works towards changing Itachi, also while changing himself, by the way. So basically, after him and Itachi start spending a lot more time together, he'd be introduced to Shishui, who would also now be convinced to join the Anbu, because Itachi asked him and said that Kakashi is a really interesting person and that he might be able to help them in their cause. So if you do not know, in some senses, in a lot of fanfic and in a lot of what ifs, basically people take the concept of Itachi and Shishui coming up with a plan to kill the Uchiha instead of Hiruzen. So they'd all obviously be the people to find out about the coup and go to the Leaf Elders and suggest if the coup ever was to come close, they'd just kill the clan and go rogue. Obviously Hiruzen would have pushed this away, and eventually Danzo would have just told them to do it because it's getting too, clear that the Uchiha are about to attack, and they do it. But that's not what we're going to be worrying about right now. So, this is still a few years before the Uchiha Massacre, about 3 years beforehand. Itachi had recently become an Anbu, about a year has passed, so it's 2 years before the Uchiha Massacre, and Shishui had also recently been included into the Anbu. So Kakashi, who would have originally been a captain at this time, would give up his captain position, but Itachi would not pick it up. So Itachi, Shishui, and Kakashi would have been put into more of a extremely Black Ops type group. They are the strongest Anbu within the village, and obviously some of the strongest ninja, all being A-rank ninja at this current moment, and they do countless suicide missions that no other Anbu group would even fathom to be able to take. Basically, Kakashi, with his 3 Tomoe Sharingan, would be able to somewhat keep up with Shishui and Itachi until something interesting happens. They are surrounded by a bunch of A-rank shinobi, not really in the same or level of strength, but about half what they are. But the sheer quantity of shinobi trying to take them out right now forces Shishui to use a specific ability. His Sharingan changes. This is the Mangekyo Sharingan, one of the most powerful weapons of the Uchiha clan, if you will. This would spark something in Kakashi. Basically, after this mission, and I'm taking care of it, they would take some time off because they really did get injured a lot within this mission before Shishui finally decided to pop it up, because it's not that he didn't trust Kakashi, but a lot of people, when pushed to know that power could be obtained in such an easy way, would turn. But eventually, after Kakashi questioning him about it, I'd say that he would probably, he'd probably break and reveal some information about the Mangekyo. Basically, Shishui would explain to him, after one obtained the 3 Tomoe Sharingan, there's a level beyond that called the Mangekyo. And basically, the way this is obtained is by seeing someone you truly love die. So he doesn't include the fact that you could be the one killing them. So Kakashi would basically look at him and say that wasn't just another level to the Sharingan. You killed people by looking at them, Shishui. Shishui would respond with, the Mangekyo gives the wielder a lot of new abilities. Each person's Mangekyo is basically unique to themselves. There are two abilities that almost every Mangekyo wielder has. He has a Genjutsu based ability that's either something like the Tsukiyomi or more intense, less intense, but it will always have some sort of Genjutsu ability. And also the Susanoo, but he will never be able to do the Susanoo. He'd ask why, and Shish would basically show him that if I only activate one of my Mangekyo, it doesn't want to activate. If I activate both my Mangekyo, it does. Unfortunately, Kakashi, you only have one Mangekyo, so you won't technically be able to ever summon it. We also have another problem. I'm pretty sure you are able to use the Mangekyo. Kakashi would question this, and basically Shishui would explain that not only did he see 3 people he truly loved die, he changed as a person afterwards. So this might be the reaction needed to cause the Mangekyo, but because of his reserves being limited and his biology basically not working with the Sharingan in tandem to be able to handle the Mangekyo. So basically 2 years from the Uchiha massacre, they'd start training Kakashi a lot like they train themselves, but more intensely. They'd focus on exhausting him as much as possible and forcing him to use the Sharingan even past exhaustion. This would cause a lot of chakra exhaustion times where he'd actually end up in the hospital, but eventually works out for the better. Eventually he can keep his Sharingan up for hours, long duration in battle, and even intense use of the Sharingan itself, which means he has at least high Kage level reserves. This should be around a year later, mind you. Now that his Sharingan has been worked on, and that his body has really adapted a lot to what his Sharingan does to it, because of him using it a lot more often than he ever would have in canon, I'd say that his body would allow for him to use the Sharingan in more extensive ways. Around this time, Shishui would basically tell him to push as much chakra into that one eye he has as possible. After trying and failing multiple attempts, they tried doing it in a death-defying situation where it would actually work. This would also go by with the span of a few weeks. So after him achieving his Mangekyo, they'd start trying to achieve the abilities. After some experimentation, they'd basically see that he has something called long-range Kamui. So it could only have a certain distance away from you. You can't get any closer than said distance. And what it does is transports things to another dimension. Shishui theorizes that you should be able to bring said things back, and basically says that usually Mangekyo abilities work from both eyes, so the other eye probably has the ability for closer range, which Kakashi would somewhat be amused by. So basically, in this last year they might have together, they'd be training Kakashi's Mangekyo, and this would once again result in him going to the hospital a lot. By the time the Uchiha massacre would come, Kakashi would probably be in a really bad situation. He would have gone through the worst chakra exhaustion he has ever gone through, and Shishui and Itachi aren't really in a better condition because they're the ones that pushed him this far. So basically, moving on, Danzo would attack Shishui, and Shishui would appear before Itachi, giving him his right eye. This is important. Danzo would have Shishui's left eye and not his right, which is also going to be a really big development for Danzo later, but we could just switch it around. This has to happen, by the way. This is one of the key factors that needs to happen because Kakashi already has Obito's in his left eye. So what would happen is, I'm pretty sure Shishui, I was right. Okay, so Shishui would give Itachi his right eye and say, give this to Kakashi. We've been preparing him for this for a long time. He de-evolved his Sharingan into a 3 Tomo state and pull it out. Obviously Itachi saying you can't do this, Shishui, but he'd basically throw his eye and fall back off the mountain. he would end up dying, unlocking Itachi's Mangekyo, which he's been fighting for a long time because he's always been able to, always been a little behind Shishui and Kakashi, who already had their Mangekyo. But now he feels like Kakashi is going to get a lot stronger, but he's not going to be able there to either get his teachings or be able to help him with anything. He would appear in front of Kakashi at the hospital, putting the eye in a sleeping Kakashi. He'd leave a note on the table and disappear once again. This time, something else would happen. The next day, as his brother goes to the academy, instead of waiting a few days, as his brother is at the academy, he initiates his attack. He would slaughter the Uchiha mercilessly. No remorse, no time to waste. His best friend just died, and he doesn't have a lot of time before he thinks his master would come after him. He knows that if Kakashi woke up while all this was happening, Kakashi would come after him. So he decided to get this done as quickly as possible. Kakashi would wake up confused. It's about nighttime. Sun had just set. Kakashi would look around. Both of his eyes are open. He feels his right eye draining. He looks over in the mirror. He sees what it is. All this time that he's been asleep, something happened. He sees another Sharingan. He knows one definite way of seeing whose Sharingan this is. Trying to activate the Mangekyo. He activates the Mangekyo to barely be able to see Shishui's Mangekyo, but then once again passes out due to Shishui's Mangekyo being a lot more developed than Obito's. So it took a lot more out of him. Also, activating it for the first time in an exhausted state would also cause a similar effect. But on the other end, Kakashi would have that same speech with Sasuke, where Sasuke would get more depressed and stay home for a week. This would also skip another iconic battle. So the iconic battle that necessarily would have been skipped was the one between Naruto and Sasuke. The first one where a nicer Sasuke would still beat Naruto and still scoff like an Uchiha and walk away. This time, Sasuke won't be there. So Naruto would be pitted up against someone else. And this someone else would probably lose. This would basically show a side of Naruto which is strong. Obviously not as strong as Sasuke, which some other people would point out, but Naruto would look over. Don't worry about Sasuke, I'll catch up with him one day. But for now, I'm just as strong as everyone else. He would have obviously beaten Kiba, who was arguably one of the stronger characters within the class at this moment in time. So, people would more or less acknowledge that he is getting stronger, pointing this out to Iruka, and Mizuki being kind of pissed because Mizuki in this one would be the one arranging the fight, and I'd say if this was canon, he would have basically been there putting Naruto against Sasuke. Seeing this, Iruka would be glad that Naruto is developing, and Naruto would be glad himself seeing that he had a prominent future. Iruka would point out that, yeah, he is getting better at taijutsu, but he still has a lot to learn about the academy style taijutsu, but because he wasn't listening while they were teaching it, he needs to go to the library. Naruto, instead of basically pushing it off, would actually decide to go to the library. When he gets to the library, he'd see so much more information about chakra control, which would be there, elemental jutsu explanation, and he'd ask himself why he didn't come here earlier. This could have been a massive development for him. He could have become much stronger much earlier. So maybe he should actually start focusing in class, because all this information they're giving him might just be worth it. But that is also going to be it, guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this part of what if Kakashi had both Shishui and Obito's eyes. This is sort of a prequel, but I'm still going to call it part 1. So yeah, thanks to the editors, the links in the description to their channels. They also do post content. And also thanks to the Dragon Lord for creating our intro and outro. This has been your boy 6. Peace out.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Subscribe for more.
Yada yada does it.